I want to thank you all for coming today for Mildred because we have some wonderful history that we're going to get to hear today, and she's got a lot of family. And I feel sure they may have heard these stories before, but you know what? There may be something new that you haven't heard. That happens often. So just enjoy. I have a few questions, and I'm going to try not to talk. I want to let her talk. So I have a few questions here, and we'll just kind of go through things, and it's our first time to do this. So I'm new at this. Mildred's talked so much over her lifetime, I'm sure this will come easy for her. So if you will bear with us, and I have a couple of people that I'll be looking at, because if they can't hear Mildred or me, they're going to be waving their arms for us to talk louder. So if you're on the front row, you may be able to hear, but if you're on the back row, we want to make sure you can hear too. And like John said, this will be available for you to listen to online. We'll get it available to you later on. So if you can't hear everything today, you'll be able to hear it later. So thank you all for coming. It's nice to see all these familiar faces. So I want to introduce Mildred Walker. She's our very first heritage speaker, and we have more that we're lining up. We want to make sure that we capture the stories of people who have lived in Grand Prairie for a long time and have seen the changes going on even before the last 25 or 30 years. So I have asked her to introduce her family, and she's got quite a few here, so I'm going to give her time to do that.
Okay, well, first of all, my sons, Don Walker and Larry Walker, and Don's wife, Sammy, our grandson, Stephen, and my little great-grandkids, where's Samantha?
She's over here. There's Whitney.
Oh, there she is, Samantha. And my oldest grandchild, Leslie, and her daughter, Maddie, and her betrothed, you know, I've always had trouble with that, you know. And let's see, is that all of them?
That's it.
Okay, and I got more grandkids. I got one that's in a fishing tournament today, who guess runs in the family. And I've got one in New York, one in Austin, and Jake's in a wedding somewhere. And anyway, but Madeline's getting married in January. So anyway, that's our family.
And we'll get a picture of you with them up here after this is over, so don't anybody run off too fast.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to ask you some questions, and first of all, because you're not shy about this, I would like to know when you were born.
I was born on October the 13th, 1923, which means if I live 3 more weeks, I'll be 98.
And we do call her the Energizer Bunny because she has come through some health problems that have been pretty serious, and she's still around, and we love it.
Still around.
So tell us who your parents were.
My parents are Julia and Henry Dickerson, and I was born in Dallas at Baylor Hospital, and I may be the oldest living baby that was born still alive, because the hospital started in 1921. I was born in 1923, and the hospital was on Bryan Avenue at that time. And I'm part of the greatest generation, you know. I was born during the Roaring 20s, grew up in the Great Depression, and also survived World War II. So that has always been an important part of my life.
That's wonderful. All right, and what about grandparents?
Well, gosh, I had some.
Yeah.
Well, my grandparents were the Hensons on my mother's side, and of course the Dickersons on my father's side. And So, you want,
Where were they from?
well, my father's folks were from Waxahachie,
Okay.
and my mother's folks were from Athens.
Oh, we might be related.
Oh, really? Okay. And,
And you have siblings.
oh, yes. I had a brother, Hank Dickerson, who a lot of you may know. He was a football star for Baylor. And also my sister, Maxine. She was an airline stewardess when it was really a rarity back in the 50s. And in case y'all don't remember, when you got married, you had to quit. You know,
A lot of
and
places.
so, but she worked for 8 years, so she didn't get married until later. But anyway, so that's it.
Okay. All right. I want to know how you met your husband.
Well, my first job, after I worked for Chrysler Corporation downtown on North Harwood Street in Dallas, and guess what? Ralph Walker worked there too. So anyway, you know how it is with love and so we ruined all my plans. I'd planned to go to SMU in the fall. I was too much in love to do that, and the war was coming and all this, that, and the other. And so that was my life. I met Ralph Walker. He was a handsome guy, I'll tell you that. And we had a great life together.
He swept you off your feet.
Oh, he swept me right off my feet.
And how old were you?
Well, I met him when I was 17, and I got married when I was 18. Had Dawn when I was 20.
Not uncommon in those days, especially around wartime.
I
So you grew up where? Where did you
grew
go
up
to
in
school?
Dallas, in North Dallas, and I grew up there and then lived there until we moved out here in 1946.
46. Okay.
Uh-huh.
A very good year.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I happen to have known Ralph a little bit, not a lot, but I do know that he liked to fish.
Yeah.
And so you had a story that you wanted to tell about fishing at Lake Dallas.
Oh, yeah. We were fishing in 1946 in Lake Dallas, and we ran out of minnows. And so Ralph went to the local shop, and they didn't have any. The guy says, "Here's a seine. Would you like to seine your own? And if you get any extra, bring them to me, and I'll be happy to buy them." So Ralph and the guy I was with, they seined minnows. They got a bunch. And so they took them up and sold them. Ralph thought that was a good deal. So he started seining minnows all the time. And that's how we got started. And so we came to Grand Prairie. Of course, Ralph is a native of Grand Prairie. He was born here and grew up here. His father was a barber here down on Main Street, and his father's brother was with him. But anyway, so we were looking for a place, and the old windmill down on East Jefferson, because minnows have to have non-chlorinated water. And so that windmill, they said, whoop, we stopped, asked the guy, we rented a place, land, and we built a shack, because you couldn't get lumber back then right after the war. And with war surplus material from Cockrum Hill, we built our first shack. And it was really a minnow shack. And from there on, we sold minnows, and Ralph was very good at getting wild minnows. And then we sold wholesale all over the country. We even sold in California. We shipped them out there on the airplane. And and we just kind of grew from there. We had we had the tackle and the guns, and then we had boats and motors. Don was on the national board of the Evans people, and we started a new business, Bass Tours. Larry started that. We were taking people fishing down in Honduras, and we took more tourists to Honduras than they'd ever had before. 800 during the time that we were operating Bass Tours. And we had other businesses here in Grand Prairie too. We had our Texas Circuit Board, and also of course, of the marina, and we had a circuit board place over in Irving. But anyway, we've been in business here in Grand Prairie for 75 years. I believe that's the oldest, the oldest business, independent business in Grand Prairie. And we've had a lot of ups and downs. Most of them are up, though, thank goodness. And so,
And all because of minnows.
yeah, it started off with minnows and ended up with boats and motors and marinas. We had marina down in Port Aransas. We had a marina out Lake Travis, a great big one that we built, and then also in Granbury. So we, of course, now have Lynn Creek Marina, and we've had it for 31 years. We built that, and we, everybody knows we sold it. And we haven't closed it yet. I haven't got the money, so I'm not going to count until I get the money. But anyway, it's supposed to get the money before the first of the year. And after 31 years, we're going to let them have it. They kept after us for 5 years, so, and they finally came up with a price we just couldn't resist. And besides, we're getting old.
Time to retire, maybe. Well, let's step back in time just a little bit.
Okay.
To some personal things as far as when you all moved here. Tell me streets that you lived on as you moved into Grand Prairie and around.
3 places.
Okay.
East Jefferson, 3306 East Jefferson. We built a house down there in 1950. And then we moved to 830 Blackburn. And my good friend Diane Quinn, I just met her over in Arlington playing bridge. She found she's from Grand Prairie. And guess what? She used to live in 830 Blackburn too.
That's something.
And that was a great coincidence. We enjoyed talking about that. And then now I live in Nottingham. And I lived in the same house now for 42 years. It's getting old.
So, I know you've been really busy in Grand Prairie. But thinking about when you were raising the family, what did you do for fun other than working and fishing?
No,
what did you do in Grand Prairie for fun?
Oh, we had so much fun back then. Well, later on, our social life was centered at Great Southwest Golf Club out here, y'all know. And we met so many of our lifelong friends there. And before that, it was Great Southwest Club, before the golf club was there. And anyway, every weekend we did something, and we just did that back then. Got in people's houses, we watched football games and blah, 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 And of course, in Grand Prairie, we had such a social life. Every year we'd take a big road trip. We'd get in a caravan of cars and went to Bandera and Oklahoma. And we were together all the time. Our friends were. I don't think you young people don't do that, I don't think. But we had a good time.
That's good.
We had a dance club called Avant Garde, where we met and about 3 times a year, I believe. And we really were high deal. We had rented a place over at the Fairmont Hotel to have it, and we went to all the good places, and we danced and had a good time.
So this leads me to something I was talking to Mildred about the other day, because as wanting to find out about history in Grand Prairie, it's always fun to find out what businesses used to be here, what restaurants used to be here. And I said, well, what were some of your restaurants where you all used to eat? What'd you tell me?
Didn't.
But why?
I mean, just wasn't much. We had Paris Cafe, and then the Pengillas, you remember, had a restaurant down on Main Street. And but we didn't have any high-class restaurants out here in Grand Prairie. And
She said she went home and cooked.
Yeah, they don't remember it. They don't think I ever cooked it. They think their father did all the cooking, and he did barbecuing in the yard. I did the cooking.
Don't you forget
Don
that,
and Larry
Don.
don't remember.
I just thought that was funny. She said, we just didn't go out to eat.
Well, we didn't back then like we do now.
Yeah. Well, now, you have mentioned being in business, which also got you very active in civic organizations.
Yes, I was.
You met a lot of people, and I want you to tell us about a lot of the organizations you were in.
Well, I would like to bring up the American Field Service. At the Presbyterian Church where we were, they'd put on a program one time, and the lady from Dallas says, you all get a chapter out here. So I thought, well, I got a little bit group together. We formed a committee. I went up to the schools, and I went up to the people and begging for money. And G.H. Turner gave me $1,000 back then to start it. And we brought foreign students to Grand Prairie to attend school and live with the family like an American for a year. And we sent students abroad. At that time, you weren't flying back and forth to Europe like you are now. This was back in the 60s, and it was a rarity to have foreign people here in our schools. But it was very good, and we had hosted some of the greatest kids that tasted Grand Prairie life for a year, lived with a family, went to school here, graduated from Grand Prairie High School. Jacques Monceau was from France, and he's now an international lawyer, very well known. And another one from Austria was up in the government in Austria when she went back. Ruth Sorensen from Denmark was here, and then she came back over here. She married a fella and lived in Washington. He was just a genius with arms and legs, I'll tell you. He was a special assistant to Ronald Reagan. And by that acquaintance, I got to visit the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., which is really a rarity, you know. And but anyway, I think that our kids benefited from being associated with kids from another land and learning how they lived. We made speeches all over town, and I headed that up for 10 years. And we, like I said, we had a lot of kids over here, and we sent kids over there. And Oscar Long had Long Furniture here in Grand Prairie, hosted our first girl, was Björk Sorensen from Oslo, Norway. And she graduated with Don's class in 1961 from Grand Prairie High School, and that's something. And we still keep in touch with her.
And what about Mike? What about Mike? You mentioned Mike Long.
Oh, Mike Long, he went abroad as part of the program, and he's a priest down in Mexico. And he has made a mark for himself down there. I don't know, some people have visited him down there. And but anyway, they really turned into being outstanding people, really. And our kids were outstanding as well.
And in that time period, that was unusual to have foreigners coming to schools here. So I think that's
not like
a
it is now,
worthwhile cause.
Got a lot of foreigners now.
And you have something in front of you that you've always been excited about.
Oh, I have.
Her eyes light up when she talks about this, so I want her to talk about it.
Well, let me tell you about, we started the Women's Club in Grand Prairie back in 1967. And really and truly, we brought people together. It was a departmentalized club. We had 365 members. Can you believe that? 365 members. We cut it off there. We couldn't handle it anymore. The city helped us, and we built the building that's up in Turner Park right now. Well, anyway, I was president in 1970, and we wanted to raise money for the retarded children here in Grand Prairie. So we contacted a production company out in New York. We got a New York director come down. We put out a call for talent, and you'd be surprised at the talent in Grand Prairie. I mean, they came out of the woodwork, singers, dancers, and everything. We rehearsed for a month, and with the director, our costumes came from the Broadway shows up in New York, and we put on a show that was just fantastic. Charlie was in it, Sammy was in it. Who else was in Oops a Daisy? Jeanette was in it, and I tell you, we had over 100 advertisers in this book. Can you believe that? 100 advertisers.
And from as far away as, what did you tell me the other day?
Well, the Sahara in Las Vegas. It has a full-page ad in here, you know.
Maybe the show could go on the road even today.
And so anyway, everybody was in show business. You made people were friends that they'd never seen each other before, and they were friends forever after. We had 2 sold-out nights in Chambers Auditorium. We raised so much money that we gave the retarded children not only a van, but we gave them gasoline for a year. What do you think about that? It was a really exciting time.
Yeah. There are quite a few names in that list, a long list of names. A lot of people. I made notes of a few because a lot of you know these people: Don Blanchard, Charlie and Janice England, Martha Richardson, who was married to Red Richardson of the Red R, Helen and Jim Caldwell, Jim Swafford, Topsy and John Wright, and Norman.
Everybody.
Julia and Norman Gilbert. I mean, the list is so long. I just picked out some that I thought you all would remember their names. So then you started something that has become extremely popular, and I think people are trying to copy around the holiday time.
Yes, we had a policeman that was stationed out in our area at the marina, and his folks lived in Connecticut. And he went home at Christmas time. He came back, he said, "Hey, Mildred, they have something up there I think we could use here. They have a Christmas parade in the park up there." And we got Lynn Creek Park. And so anyway, so I sent off and got to the town up there and got a cassette of their program up there. I brought it here. I called the Chamber of Commerce. We met at the Oasis. We showed them the film. Everybody was excited. We're going to have it. Steve Allen named it Prairie Lights, and he did the first logo with the little Christmas lights around. And 2 years later, we had Grand Prairie Parade of Lights. Of course, back then, we had to use generators. The park didn't have that much electricity in it, and it kind of curtailed it. But we had a company come in here and that had done it before, and we had the first Parade of Lights 2 years later. And that's still going on. Of course, it's had its ups and downs, but it's really going now. But anyway, we're proud of that. Proud that we had a part in starting it. And
how many years?
We did it, let's see, about 1994 or 6. And then, don't you know, the church bought it and took it up somewhere, and then the city bought it, and of course they put in electricity, which made it good. Didn't have to have generators anymore, and so they've been operating it ever since. But anyway, we started it, and we're proud of it. Okay, and it's a success right now. Of course, like you say, a lot of other people are doing it now.
Right.
And we were the first ones.
Now you've been involved with the chamber for years, and you've done an awful lot. Is there something else in the chamber that you're proud of you've worked on?
We raise money like crazy all the time. Everything you do is raising money, you know. And I've raised a lot of money in Grand Prairie, I'll tell you that. Everybody here, And of course, I'm affiliated with Children First. It's one of my favorite charities.
Some people might not know what that is. Give them a little idea.
For abused and neglected children. And we just, on a new venture, we bought a building that I don't know if that was a good one. Been renovating it for a year now, and we're still not wholly in it. But anyway, it's been going on for 40 years, Children First. And it was started by a woman here called April Griffin. She had a big heart, and I got involved. She got me involved, and we formed a committee, of course. And of course, I was the first president, and I'm on the board now. And it's very worthy of all of your support. They help a lot of people.
Family counseling.
And
Family counseling, children.
And you'd be surprised at the need. Of course, you know, we don't give out too much information on that. But anyway, we're proud of what it's done.
Okay. Well, going back a little bit again, since we have a lot of things happening in Grand Prairie right now, all the new growth.
Oh, yeah.
But you moved here in 1946, and you started a business. What other businesses come to your mind that were getting off the ground, and other changes that were like in the next 20 or 25 years that you really remember?
Well, a whole lot. We had Watson's department store came in here. Gosh, that was a big deal. And we had the stores up and down Main Street, May's Jewelry, Goss Shoe Store, like I say, Watson Brothers later, and Marie's Shop. Y'all remember Marie's? And then the usual, we had a regular downtown with head-in parking back then.
A lot of retail.
And I want to say Charlie is here, and I want to say one thing during his reign that he did that united the Grand Prairie a lot. He got that bridge built over Jefferson and Main Street on Beltline, and that united the north and the south part of Grand Prairie. Isn't that right, Charlie? Yeah, it did.
Okay.
And of course, what's going on now is amazing. All of you been out south, I hope, on 161. My gosh, what's going on?
You wouldn't have thought that would have occurred when you were living back in the 50s or 60s.
Did you all know that in 1946, Grand Prairie had 30,000 people? You know how many people Arlington had? 7,200. Can you believe that we were bigger than Arlington? Huh? That's right.
Bigger and better.
You can look it up in the census. It's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you have any particular words of wisdom for the people here in this room without preaching? Anything you would like for them to be aware of that you recall helped you through life?
Well, I tell you one thing. I think I'm the luckiest person in the world. I've had a great life. I've had ups and downs. But overall, it's been wonderful, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I had a wonderful family, and I've been a widow for 28 years, which is not easy. But I've tried to stay active and with my friends, and I've lost a lot of friends here in Grand Prairie. We're all getting older. And Randy's Galloway, y'all know Randy Galloway, famous Randy Galloway. And Janine, his mother was a dear friend of mine. She was a reporter for the paper. We used to have a paper here all the time. And she was a society editor. And when she couldn't find anything else to write about, she'd write about me or Ruthie. And so we were in the paper all the time. She made us famous. And then along comes Randy, thinks he outdid her. I don't know if he did or not. But anyway, Randy's been like a member of our family. He and Don have been friends since junior high or something. I don't know, something like that. So that's it. You make friends in Grand Prairie, and they last forever. They really do.
That's always been a good part of Grand Prairie, I think, even if people move away.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to 1946, and you built that little shack you called it, and you continue to grow on Jefferson Boulevard. you saw other things coming along in that area too, and you were very close to Hensley Field and the Naval Air Station. What do you remember about visiting with some of the people that were stationed there?
Well, we did make friends with a lot of people from over there. In fact, George Owen, who was the commander over there, we made a little. He lived in one of those houses at Hensley Field. We became close friends with them. We visited them after they left here and everything in Florida. And we had a lot of customers from there. And of course, there's one thing, when you speak of Grand Prairie, you've got to mention Chance of All and LTV. Even though they're not in Grand Prairie, they're in Dallas. They're right here, though. But I mean, it had a great influence on the life here in Grand Prairie. The aircraft industry has been good to Grand Prairie. And of course, the building's empty now, I guess. But it had a great impact on the people here in Grand Prairie. A lot of people worked out there. Most of them did. And
it grew Grand Prairie.
And it grew.
Really
and the
did.
Naval Air Station. Of course, back then, that was government property, and we'd go over to the club over there, and they had slot machines, drinks, and everything. Back when it's still not popular here, not illegal here, but back then it was on government property. So and Don had good friends at the Naval Air Station, and I don't know the kid's name. His father was something.
Trainer.
Huh?
Trainer.
Okay. I can't hear you.
Trainer.
Okay, trainer. Okay. But anyway,
So I just want to find out, in this family, besides.
I want to mention one thing. Potts Department Store.
Oh gosh, yes.
I remember Potts.
Some people don't know anything about it.
Well, anyway, that was the store down on East Jefferson. I mean, they had blue jeans before anybody had blue jeans. I mean, Potts. And Max Biederman came over here, and after World War II, he hopped off a train going to a concentration camp in Germany. And he and his family came over here. He couldn't even hardly speak English, and he moved down there on East Jefferson with us down there. And they started that store. And that's another famous person that came out of Grand Prairie. His son, Stanley Biederman, went on to become a lawyer, and also was one of the founders of Whole Foods. What do you think about that? Started right here in Grand Prairie.
Yeah,
Isn't that something?
they were a fine
And
family.
he lives in Santa Fe now. He visited Larry in Austin, and he's a nice young man. And his sister, Linda, is in real estate over in North Dallas. And of course, they were a Jewish family, and I guess they were the only Jewish family here, except where's Pat? She gone?
No, she's there.
She's hiding.
Oh, there you are. And then Pat came.
All right, so my question was, this family has grown up around boats and fishing and lakes, and what is one other hobby that you all have enjoyed together, or activity?
Well,
Because we only think of fishing when we think of the Walker family.
gosh, tennis and golf.
Okay.
And golf a lot. And then I played tennis, and the tennis competitors of Dallas, we did good. And we played all over Dallas. And like I say, there's just so many different little places where you got special friends, that do this, that, from the golf club, from tennis, and from the chamber, and this, that, and the other. So we tried to be part of it all.
You're a busy lady.
I was.
All right.
Now I'm playing bridge.
So I would like to find out if anyone has a question. Angela?
Tell us about your getting to meet President Kennedy.
What?
Oh, you're getting to meet President Kennedy. Angela wants to have you tell the story.
Oh,
of
yeah,
meeting.
well, he came to Grand Prairie, he and LBJ. during the campaign. Of course, we all met him down there on the corner of Main Street Center. But anyway, we thought he was so handsome and so good, we just followed him all the way over to Fair Park. And when he went over there too. But anyway, the day that he was killed, a friend of mine, Denise Walker, we saw him over in Fort Worth on TV. So I called her and I said, Denise, let's go to Love Field and see him. And she said, okay. So we got in the car, we rushed over to Love Field. We got there before he got there from Fort Worth in the airplane. But anyway, so we were right up there next to the fence, and here he comes, he and Jacqueline, with all their entourage, and he starts to get in the limousine, and then he sees all of us, and he decides he'll come over here and shake hands. So I shook his hand, and Jacqueline was right behind him, and I kind of drew my hand back. I didn't want her to mess up my Jackie Kennedy hand. And so anyway, before we got back, of course they held us at Love Field until the all got out of the way. But by the time we got to the triple underpass, he had been shot. It was a sad day for all. Mm-hmm.
Randy had a question back in the back.
Well, I almost had two, but
Say it loud.
I almost had two questions. My first question was, it was always a rumor, but the big photo we've all seen of JFK on Main Street in front of Mildred Walker. Weren't you in that picture?
Yeah, I am.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Second, I just wanted to.
Me and Topsy, huh?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Say Topsy right now, we're there.
I just wanted to also mention that Mildred, as long as I worked for the city, Mildred was very active in tourism. The marina and Joe Bull Lake is a tourism destination in Grand Prairie, and Mildred served 20 years on the Convention and Visitors Bureau Board.
The tourism
very
board.
active
The tourism board.
The Tourist Information Center and all the.
Yeah, like I say, and of course I got to say something special about Larry. You're on Facebook, he's on Larry. He's on it all the time. He's fished in over 40 different countries. He likes to fish. And he's writing a book.
55 countries.
He's writing a book, and when it comes out, I'll get by it. It's called Menace to Marlin. And I've read it, and it's really good. So you'll enjoy it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody
Tell them
else?
about LBJ.
Oh, well, I told him once. But no, well, LBJ, I had, of course, I didn't know who LBJ was back when I was 18 years old, and he was a congressman from Austin, and Ralph was stationed at Fort Sam and before he went overseas. By the way, Ralph made the invasion of France on Normandy beaches, and it had an effect on him the rest of his life. But anyway, so I was working for the Office of Price Administration down there. I was the first employee of that bureau in San Antonio, and it was odd how I got the job. I decided they had an ad in the paper, they were interviewing people, so I went down and signed up and was sitting in the chair, and I was close to the lady answering the phone. And I heard her keep referring to people upstairs. And this was at the Majestic Theater in San Antonio where they'd been. So I thought, well, I'll wait long enough. I think I'll go upstairs and see what's up there. So I kind of slipped out of my chair and went upstairs. I was walking down the hall, and the telephone was ringing. And the guy said, answer that phone. And it was sitting on the floor in this office. So I answered it, said, hello. And I was interviewing all those people down there next. I was their first employee. And that was, you're adventuresome when you're 18. But anyway, and so anyway, I was in the office one day, and Mr. Colbert, who was the Buick agency in Austin, he was a $1 man during World War II. Anyway, he told me, he said, I'm in a conference, I don't want to be disturbed. I said, okay. I'm right there at the front desk. So here comes this 3 or 4 guys, and they said who they were, and I said, we're going to have a seat, Mr. Colbert's not to be disturbed. So they sat, very nice, and here comes Mr. Colbert, and it was LBJ and his entourage out of Washington. And of course, you know, he was big down in South Texas. Of course, I didn't know him. And anyway, so anytime LBJ, Lyndon Johnson comes, I will be disturbed. But he wasn't there for a while. And then later on, I had another encounter with Lyndon Johnson down at Teresa Rios in Acapulco, playing golf. Margaret Knight and I were playing, and there weren't many people on the course. And anyway, so we come up on a 3-par, and of course it has a big pond out in front. Golf, water was terrible for me. My husband used to say, just throw a couple in there and go on around. But LB, and guess what? We come up, and down at the other end of this 3-par is LBJ, Troy's Post, and that guy from Hollywood with them all the time. And so they wave us through. Oh, golly, can you imagine? I've been pond of water. And so I prayed to God, and God answered my prayers. I shot the most beautiful shot I've ever seen. Landed about that far from the hole. And so we got over there, Lyndon Johnson said, what a shot. He said, you deserve a beer for that. He gave me a beer. I still got the bottle. It's in my house.
Love it.
So,
oh gosh.
Lyndon and I had an encounter.
I think that's wonderful. Jeanette.
Weren't you the first woman in the grand jury?
I was the first to serve on the petty jury in Dallas County, and I also served on the grand jury when you serve for 3 months and 5 days a week. Now they got it done, you go for a day or 2, I think. But anyway, I got to thinking I was a real lawyer. I mean, I sent all those marijuana people to jail directly.
Power. Oh, I love it. Anybody else with a question?
Yeah, did you know Joe Poole, Congressman Joe Poole?
I knew him. I didn't know him personally, and I knew, you know, he was, the land out there was on some of his property. In fact, the Pools still have a house out there, I think, huh?
And there's no houses on the lake because it's a federal lake.
It's still there, isn't it?
No. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah.
No, he wants to know why there are no houses on there, because it's a federal lake.
What?
There are no houses there because it's a federal lake?
You can't put houses on the shore.
Corps of Engineers, you can't put.
Huh? No.
Can't own land on the water.
It has to be back the high water line. That is a water conservation, flood control lake. So it's a flood control. We flood. We flood because we're a flood control lake. In fact, and when the last 3 or 4 years, we haven't gone through a year without a flood, I don't think.
You've really had a hard time.
Yeah, we've had lots of floods. But anyway, we survived so far.
Yeah. More survival stories. So, I have no more questions, and I think it's time that we have a little time to visit and have some refreshments. So, unless you have one last thing you'd like to share?
I don't know. Can you think of anything?
Here, I can think of one thing, and
What?
we moved to Grand Prairie in 1955, and I lived here to 2013, and then I decided I would go out kind of where the Wild West was, out in Parker County, out in Toledo, very small town at the time, wide open, a lot of ranches. Now things are totally different. I mean, it's almost like damn Dallas. But we moved out there full-time in 2013, the place we had owned for a while, but only went out on the weekends. So we made a lot of friends out there, and I mean, it's people from all different walks of life, fire captain in Weatherford, country and western singers, real cowboys that work ranches, retired XTO people who are rich, all these different people. Well, Mildred has been out a lot to parties, and people are fascinated with Mildred, and they'll go, how old is she? And I was, it was a few years ago, and I'd go, 94, and she still drives a red Jaguar convertible. They're going, damn. And to this day, Mildred was just out the house about a month ago. In fact, our friends who are country western singers, they're having a baby, and so they made sure that we invited Mildred to the bridal, baby shower, okay, to the baby shower. And so I just wanted to say she's a legend in Grand Prairie, but now she's a damn legend in Parker County.
We don't know if we want to share her too far outside the city limits.
Not much to share. Got not much time left.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been fun.
Well, thank you,
Been a great
Mildred.
life. Thank all of you for being a part of it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank y'all for coming.
Amazing.